Kale, thanks for popping in this morning. I thought it'd be really good that we start introducing our videos in a different way after we've had them to talk about what's going on. I see a lot of podcasts doing that, and I thought, hey, let's do that. I'm in swim trunks and a T-shirt today because I'm going to a client that lives at Lake of the Ozarks, which is, not a bad day.
Terrible day.
Horrible day, right? Yeah, got to go to lunch on a boat. Yeah. Maybe have to float in the water.
What a shame.
And talk some good stuff today. But no, excited to introduce the episode coming up. You're just going to listen to today. Not you, but the audience, right? Maybe you'll listen to it. I don't know. Maybe Lindo will listen to it. Well, we've got Chris Howard on. I want to emphasize Chris Howard's Bank of America. And Chris Howard, we've worked with for a long time. Mm-hmm. Great guy, good friend, and becoming the National Sales Director for Bank of America. It's a new role for him and going to do a lot of great things for the veterinary community. What's important about bringing Chris Howard on Bank of America, as people know, we're small businesses, centered, private practice centered, and that's what he is. I think people need to know that about Bank of America. They are investing in the small communities to big communities all over the place. They've got something for everybody, and we're specifically on the veterinary practice. So look forward to you all diving down into what Bank of America can do, what separates them, what makes them unique. And what else did you get out of the episode?
I think it's important that people know what's out there as an option, because I think as a small business, you want to help other small businesses, right? So if you're looking for a loan, you might go to that local bank or something, and there's nothing wrong at all with local banks. But the important thing is to know that Bank of America and other banks out there have a really, really good specified program for people to use in the veterinary space. And so just want people to know that that's out there and available to them, and people like Chris to be able to help them, guide them through that process.
Well, we know it's good because we've seen other small banks literally take the verbiage off their webpage, put it on their own bank website, try to duplicate it, and with good means, right? They want to do it, but what Bank of America has is unique and specialized, and so hope everybody enjoys this episode, learns about it. If you got any questions about it, don't hesitate to email us. Check us out on our website, thevettedpodcast.com, and let's get this thing rolling, Lindo. Good morning.
Morning.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Hey, Chris, I'm so happy to have you on the Vetted Podcast today, my man.
I'm excited. Long time coming.
I'm a little nervous.
You're nervous.
No, I'm kidding.
No.
Shaking on too much coffee?
Yeah, I'm like
caffeine. Yeah, blame it on that. Yeah. No, but Chris, you're one of our longest partners in this veterinary niche space. Trusted friend, love you like a brother, so this is awesome.
It is awesome. I'm excited. You can see it on my face.
Yeah. Chris, you were with Bank of America and most recently National Sales Director for Bank of America. And we couldn't be more excited about that because our capacity together, you're out of St. Louis. That's where home's at.
That's right.
We're literally home from
That's right.
for life, right?
That's right.
It brings you back. But excited to have you up there because of what you're going to do for the veterinary space. Not only our relationship, but it's really for the veterinary space. We're going to talk about how unique that is, how people don't understand the specialty part of Bank of America, this big bank. I mean, it's a
behemoth.
It's that, the BFD of banks, It's a big deal. And we're excited, though, that they're able to have a division, the healthcare division that you are now heading for the veterinary space, and to bring that to the small independent businesses, because that's what the Vetted Podcast is about. Vetted Podcast wants to see that independent businesses are successful.
Yep.
And there's nothing more important than the right banking partner for that to happen. Get in practice, grow your practice, sell your practice to your associate one day, be able to make all that funding happen.
That's right.
And so I think just the real high level looking at it, who would think that these guys here on the Vetted Podcast are all about the independent businesses, and they bring one of the biggest banks in the world,
Might be counterintuitive, right? On an initial glance, right?
Yeah. But it's not. Well, hey, a couple introductions here. We got somebody back in the chair over there. Our buddy Danny was. It's not Danny.
Did a terrible job. We fired him.
Hey, Danny had an 8-week trial period and it didn't go so well.
Yeah, it didn't go. We had to get rid of him.
No, Danny was filling in for Linda while he was coaching some soccer down in Jackson, Mississippi.
Nice.
Yes, sir. Feel good to be back.
It's good to have you back, my man.
Thank you for having me
You
back.
sat in that chair like a champ, like you didn't leave it. So
Appreciate
I
it.
did harass you a bit about it, right?
Yeah.
But that's love. Good to have you back. I'm Stephen Hermann with Pro Partners Team.
Kale Flaspohler, Pro Partners Team.
And this is the Vetted Podcast. If you enjoy what we're doing, please like and subscribe. And find us on thevettedpodcast.com. And as always, we're up for topics. We're up for, we're making this up as we go, which is part of the fun, right? When I say making it up, we're digging in our bench of friends, digging in our bench of what we do as a business. But if there's something like, I'd really like to hear about that on an episode. When it comes to private veterinary practice, we're all about it. We've got enough expertise, knowledge, friends to come in and talk that we can be on it. So let's dive into it today. Where we started off at connection, right? Why Bank of America, animal health, and the niche part of that, and knowing that Bank of America has the veterinary reps around the country that meet with these independent business owners all the time, and because we get, I think one of the things like independent business owners like, I want to work with my local banker,
Right.
and hey, I get it.
Yeah.
Local banks matter.
Absolutely.
Local banks matter, but when you're dealing with a niche industry that its biggest asset is its client list, is the people coming through the door, it's hard to lend on that client list.
That goodwill.
They want to, local banks need assets to lend on.
Right.
Maybe a building they can do, but the practice itself is tough a lot of times for local banks. So I've always been excited to be able to say we've got somebody you can call and talk to at Bank of America. And one of the big things is those local banks want to help that veterinary be successful too. But as they get into the weeds, they kind of go a little starstruck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure that maybe this was the wrong idea. And we're 6 months in though, right?
Right.
Like, I want to break ground. I want to buy this practice.
Yeah.
What I think one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed working with you, Chris, I know Kale has, is that pretty darn early if you can do that deal.
Right.
And that's huge because time is money, right?
Yeah.
And so that matters. So talk to you about, that unique position.
Yeah. It's awesome to be a part of, right?
Yeah.
Someone has a dream to be a practice owner. Those are my favorite conversations, whether they're starting from scratch or buying a practice. It's a dream. And we try to make sure that dream doesn't turn into a nightmare. And there's a whole process to it, right? And I typically tell my docs, first call, I need at least an hour and a half from you. I got to understand what type of doc, what kind of medicine, what kind of style you like to practice. That's going to tell me how much square footage we're looking at if it's a startup. In the same respect, if you're buying a practice, we got to dig in and go historically backwards. We got to understand what you're buying, which is the goodwill, right? That's what makes everything else possible in your life. How good is that goodwill? So depending on the opportunity, I always come from the vantage point of if my wife and I were going to buy this practice or if we were going to start this practice, what would we do? And I try to pay that forward. And there's times, right? Because we're not for everyone. The knowledge is, right? The experience that we've, combined over 26 years of doing this throughout the United States and doing this well for that time frame and doing it the most every year, you try to pay that forward, even though potentially it might not be a client for you right now. It's the right thing to do. In animal health, the beautiful thing about it is everyone kind of is connected and you got to do right by people. So multiple times you'll get into a situation, you're talking to someone, and it was funny.
It's the number two. It's the number 2 trusted profession in the United States.
Yeah.
By consumers.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of trust.
Yeah. And I love my vets. I was up in Seattle last week and I was meeting with a couple of our reps. And someone that used to be in the animal health industry, now he's on the dental side of our business. And I forgot about this story. He reminded me of it. It was years ago. We were in our corporate office in Columbus, Ohio. I took about 4 guys that were internal workers for us out to lunch. And I said, guys, I'll be in there in a second. I got to do a phone call with a veterinarian who wants to start a practice. I'll be there and give me some time. And apparently I talked to this person for a good hour and I got off the call and I still had a couple of guys in the car with me. And I turned around and I said, unfortunately, we're not going to do that deal. I kind of knew that right from the get-go. It wasn't the right, makeup of what we look for in a client at that time. But again, I think and I believe you pay that information forward, that education forward, that experience forward. And then who knows, down the road or something might change and that person will remember that conversation.
You invested in that person.
Right.
And especially knowing that there are lenders out there that will take a bigger risk, right? I mean, that's at the end of the day too. It's like Bank of America has their guardrails of what you're comfortable lending with, which allows you to lend at, the right way and responsibly, right?
Yeah,
and so I think that's so important for that person's success, and that hey, they're probably going to get in business. They're going to get a loan.
Yeah.
In a few years, I might be like, I need a new loan.
That's right.
But they got a business going now, got those things, and you're like, you might be able to jump in and help them is what you're saying.
That's right.
A few years down the road.
That's right. And, if you do the right by people, I think that comes full circle for you. Mm-hmm. If you have good intentions, right?
Right.
So that first bite of the apple, maybe it's not us, maybe it's another bank, but I believe being part of the solution, I might say, hey, not for us, but I think you'd be better served by X, Y, and Z bank. I think they have a niche for this, and that might work out better for you now. Mm-hmm. You come back in 5 years and you need to expand that practice. Yeah. Hey, you treated me really well when no one else did. You shot me straight. I appreciate that. And I want to have another conversation about it. And they might look like what we want them to look like at that point. Mm-hmm. So it's very short-sighted to shut off an opportunity with a doctor just because right now they might not be what you're looking for or what the underwriters look for.
Yeah. Well, one of our core values is stewardship. And so I think that partly is why you fit in so well with our group is because that's exactly what you're talking about, is being a good steward of information, being a good steward of people and their futures, and making sure that they're on the right path, whether that's you, whether that's someone else, and making sure that they get connected with the right people, which I've seen you do time and time again, and know how appreciated that is by everyone.
Well, and I've shared with you guys over the years, I wish you guys existed all throughout the country. It would make a lot of
We're working on it.
That's right. It'd make a lot of what we do so much easier, right? Because you guys are a one-stop shop. We try to be a one-stop shop for financial needs, right? For the lending and banking and wealth management side potentially too. But for you guys, if you guys were in every single marketplace, and again, I know that expansion is taking place in the right way, it makes our life so much easier to have trusted professionals that we can marry up a client to and know that you guys have their best interests at heart. Mm-hmm. It doesn't always happen. Yeah. Right. And it's unfortunate when we see that resource network kind of take a turn for the worse potentially with that client. And you can kind of see it happening right in front of your eyes. And you're like, oh man, I really hope this thing kind of straightens itself out. But, down the line, they say, hey, I never should have worked with that person. Mm-hmm. Hey, that's okay. You live and you learn. You don't make the same mistake twice. So,
well, I think that's back to that word trust. I think we all in this room are trusting people. We want to give people trust. The biggest thing is the time in the industry to show that I've been trusted for not just 1 year now, not 2 years, but 10, 15.
That's right.
Right? And our Bank of America now, 26 years in animal health. So, Chris, I joke about, I grew up in a supermarket family. Mm-hmm. And when people asked, when did you think you'd work with veterinarians? You've heard my bad joke. It's, I've got dogs.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, but no, kidding aside, for a decade now, I've been working with veterinarians on the business strategy side and helping them out to be successful as independent owners. But I didn't know I was going to end up in the veterinary space.
Right.
I knew I wanted to help people. And when I saw how the veterinarians are, they trust, they listen, and they need help in the business side of things. And that's been rewarding for me. So I kind of just randomly fell into it, meeting Wes one day. Really did. Yeah. But saw that. How did you fall into it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'll take it back to when you're a little person, right? Yeah. And you're in grade school and you fill out what you want to be when you get older, right? And I forgot about this, quite honestly, up until about 13, 14 years ago. Apparently I filled out I want to be a veterinarian, and my mom gave it to me back when I think I was like 26 years old. She was cleaning out the basement and said, hey, I came across this and gave it to me. And I wasn't working for Bank of America yet, right? I was working nonprofit fundraising. And I looked at that, and I opened it up, and I was like, man, when you're young, you have those dreams, those ambitions, right? I thought it was going to say soccer player or a police officer or a firefighter. That's what I thought it was going to say. And it said veterinarian. And I grew up in a household that my dad worked nights. He'd find animals and he'd come home, he'd find dogs, cats. So we always had a house with like 4 to 3 dogs, 3 to 5 cats and hamsters and fish. Like always had that, always grew up around it. And I came from that family that always had animals. So I think it was like inherent from the earlier on stage that I wanted to work somehow, some way, shape, or form with animal health. And when I first, joined Bank of America Practice Solutions, they put me into one of our sectors, which happened to be our dental sector. And we're pretty prevalent in that sector. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing well. I feel like I'm doing okay. And I remember they switched me from Southern California dental internally as an inside salesperson over to the Northeast veterinarians, really the East Coast, and helping support some of our guys on the outside there. And I really thought I made someone mad and I needed to apologize to someone because I thought it was a bad thing. I wasn't on the right track. And I look back and then I laugh today because that was 100% the right path for me to get on, to get back to what I, wanted to do, which was help an industry that is ultimately filled with really good people that want to help animals and ultimately their people and their owners. So it's just funny how things happen. Things happen for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah.
And I look back to the day when they told me I was switching and I was disappointed. I was like, I must have not done as well as I think I did. And it couldn't have been any better for the path. So that gave me a platform where I got introduced to animal health. And then from there, took a promotion to go down to Charlotte. And again, I really didn't understand what I was doing. And I met a doctor named Jim Wilson. You guys know Jim Wilson or not?
I've heard you talk about Jim. Yeah.
Great guy. And he kind of took me by the ear more or less and said, hey, I don't think you know what you talk about. And I said, why do you say that? He goes, because I can tell. And I said, okay, that's fair. I said,
You're
I know
not speaking vet.
I know what the bank taught me, in terms of looking at financials, but I didn't understand the business. I didn't understand the industry.
Right.
And thank God I met Jim, Dr. Wilson, because he was the person that literally set up clinic observations for me down in Lake Norman with some of his colleagues, right?
Okay.
And I took a month of my life and I just did clinic observations, every day for a full month at 3 different locations, 3 different styles of practice. And I asked questions and I watched. And it gave me a good vantage point as to what the business actually looks like, the challenges faced by reception, challenges faced by the doctors, the techs. And it really gave me a crash course on education about what the business needs and what it is. And so I've always taken that approach and being consultative and understanding how the bank, and the products and services can help benefit practice owners and make their lives better personally and professionally. So sorry to get on a soapbox, but that's how it all kind of came to be. And there's a lot of stuff that happened in between about 10 years I skipped over there, but it's always been a love of mine ever since I was introduced to it. And, at an early age, took a hiatus, came back into it randomly. And I thought at the time I did something wrong to get back into it. But it just kind of came to be. And I think it all happened for a reason.
That's pretty wild. My dreams as a kid apparently weren't huge. Lived in Lake Ozark.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And in the wintertime where I live, early, it was the 70s, 80s. I was born in 79 in the 80s.
Yeah.
In the wintertime, all the cool thing that drove down the street was a trash truck.
Yeah.
That was a big old truck as a little kid.
Yeah.
I put down, I want to drive a trash truck and play the guitar.
There you go. There you go.
And I don't know how to play guitar, and I don't drive a trash truck.
It sounds like a country music album, Stephen.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but it's funny. Like my brother though was drawing rockets. He wanted to be a rocket engineer, and he,
Mom and Dad are like, we got to keep a close eye on Stephen.
Yeah, they're like, start giving him manual labor at a young age.
That's right.
Try to break him of manual labor.
Hey, those guys make a heck of a living.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
They're in demand.
Yeah,
I know in St. Louis especially.
No. Kidding aside, but in the veterinary industry, you hear that. I think maybe it's where my love of people came from, right? It's like I was talking to the trash truck guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can talk to anybody. But I'm always curious to hear from, we don't have, it's funny, as friends, you don't ever get that deep on the conversation. So being able to ask you. I don't think
I've ever shared that with you.
No, you haven't. I never knew. Did you know that Chris wanted to be a veterinarian at a young age? Wrote that down?
Did you know in a time capsule in Hannibal somewhere that's buried that I probably am a real estate agent right now?
Oh,
yeah, somewhere.
Yeah,
I've always wondered what I wrote on that piece of paper. They're going to pull it out here in 10, 15 years. I don't know what's on there.
And I can tell you, my sister's the pathologist. She got the brains out of the family. I probably couldn't pull off getting into vet school, and then thereafter I know that much. But
you enjoyed college.
Yeah, a little too much. Still too much.
Yeah, I started out in engineering, and a couple years in, I was like, I'm good. But you say knowing the community.
Yeah,
9 out of 10 veterinarians knew they want to be a veterinarian, like in grade school.
Right.
There's 1 out of 10 that kind of fall into it. For the most part, it's got to be 9 out of 10 that knew that, and it's neat to see that passion and influence the animals coming in.
Yeah.
Care and love for those coming in through the door, and
that's right.
Seeing that's neat what influences us.
Well, and on that note, and I take it super seriously because over the years, before the puppy pandemic and COVID all hit and really kind of juiced up the industry in a good way, you'd see these owners, right, that were struggling and they regretted why they picked that profession, right? And that was always the saddest thing to me is you see an associate that realized financially I'm not where I should be. And I don't think I would go and do this ever again to myself. And I'm like, no, you'll be all right. And I'd see doctors cry, you know, when you have that conversation with them and they're like, I just don't think I'd do this ever again to myself. I'm like, you invested in yourself. You went to school. You're a doctor. You know, this will pay itself off. You invest in yourself. You know, we'll get you on the right path. And that's why I take it super seriously. And like trying to guide people the right way and put them on the right path. And again, my sister's a pathologist. We grew up, my dad threw a paper route, right? We didn't have much things growing up and, you know, understood you had to invest in yourself and try to get yourself to another, you know, status of life if you were going to pay it back to yourself. So I would see these older vets that were practice owners and they end up, you know, getting in trouble because they do some stuff they shouldn't do at the practices. And, you know, it came from a place of stress, financial stress most of the times because they weren't given the knowledge of how to run a practice the right way potentially or how to manage their personal finances. So I always take that perspective whenever I'm talking to any new client, as if I'm talking to my sister, right? And knowing that she went through medical school and she really didn't have time to understand the business side of what she's going to be dealing with. And that's a very important piece of the puzzle that they don't tell you about until you get out. And that's like, okay, now you got to learn on the fly. And some people can do it. Some people avoid it, right? And so that's where you got to understand where that doctor, where the knowledge level exists. And if they need the help, having someone like you guys, so I can say, hey, check them out. You know, they're going to be a one-stop shop for everything and anything that you need personally and professionally from your business standpoint. I have full, total confidence in what you guys do. And I get the report cards back from the doctors you guys work with.
I appreciate
and not
that.
once have I heard anyone say anything negative like, hey, this isn't, you know, Dr. Zach Whitehead. He's like, this is exactly what I need, right? So it's fun helping people.
Hey, we're the same as you, though. There's people that we shouldn't work with, right? That's like, it's a fit. We're not going to be right for everyone, but the ones that we work with,
that's right.
It makes a difference. And so we appreciate that relationship and introductions both ways that happen. And your vision, mission, you know, ours is simplified down to, we want to see a vibrant future for the veterinary medicine, for the practices and those things. And I truly believe it does come from the independent practice because you talk about the income. Veterinarians did not, you know, generally don't, if they're coming for income as a doctor, they're probably thinking about human medicine and, you know, specialty surgery and things you can make $500,000 a year doing, right? Yeah. Versus, you know, over here at private practice, that paradigm shift. Have you seen that change though? People really realizing that profit's okay?
Yes. They almost feel guilty in a way, right?
Right. There's always guilt with profit for some reason.
There was a Brecky study, and it was almost like if you had to present a client potential charges on something, you would almost downsell it yourself before you went and talked to the client and said, well, we don't need to do this. That's, you know, we can do this. And they'd end up, you know, cutting charges, cutting fees. And it's like, no, you know, you're worth it. And you practice medicine the way you want to practice. And I do believe that's what you're seeing with the private equity model versus the private ownership model.
Right.
A lot of people, you know, for different reasons will end up working at a private equity group hospital. And then, you know, for whatever reasons, they end up leaving that, right? And they go off on their own. And those are sometimes, you know, the most rewarding interactions, right? When you have someone that's like, I became a veterinarian to help, not be told how I have to practice that style of medicine and what drugs I have to use and what protocols I have to use. And it takes away the art of the profession.
It does.
You know? So,
especially when it's like, I hear ear cytology.
Yeah.
It's like one of the most, you know, charged services at a practice, right? And a lot of the private equity, it's like they just say swab all the ears, prescribe medicine, and then in 6 months swab all the ears, and then there's no proactive preventative medicine going on. It's just prescribe. They've got a pre-prescribed plan for each doctor and each.
That's right. Pull out a book and it's a flow chart.
Yeah.
This is how you have
there's
to do
good private equity, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there's successful good private equity, but there's also other ones that private equity if you go the definition of it, it doesn't work with businesses.
Yeah.
Success, because it's about flipping it to the next person to make money off a pool of things and go on. So it's not a business, but won't go down that route.
No.
Because there's Bank of America's got divisions that probably work on private equity and do good things.
Very much so.
So I don't want to lump everybody into the same boat. But
Yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
We can switch gears. I had this question literally this week from a person that was looking to get into ownership. And so it was very, very, very early on in the conversation, but they said, when we go look at a bank to buy this, are they looking at me? Are they looking at the practice? Like what kind of shape do I need to put myself in? What kind of shape does that business need to be in? What's the weight placed on both? And I thought you would probably be the best person to answer that question.
I might be able to help out there.
Can you help on that?
I'll try. I'll try to do it without boring everyone. How about that? So it's a two-sided equation, right? It takes the practice and the potential borrower/buyer to make that deal make sense. So for example, I've seen practices that have, high skill set, right? Hard tissue surgeries, right? A lot of production coming from specialty work, and the new owner doesn't perform the same skill sets, right? On the surface, the numbers all might match up just fine if you don't know how to dig and pull back that curtain a little bit and say, this 25% of the revenue is coming from TPLO surgeries. Our new guy can't do it. Well, the old owner says they're going to stay on, but we've all been around. That doesn't always translate. After the passing of the baton, they might, John Wayne it and ride off in the sunset. So we got to make sure we're doing the responsible thing and understanding what that transaction looks like from high level. Breaking down the business, right, to see what the truest form of profitability looks like after you kind of get all the ad backs in. Everyone always, EBITDA, fancy way of saying how much money you're going to make after it's all said and done.
Cash flow, right?
Yeah. How much income is there for you to support the debt that it takes to buy this business?
Yeah.
And so we take it a step further and say, hey, does this not just pay for itself, but does it pay for your lifestyle? So skill set, your production levels, do they match up? That's number one. Time license, does it make sense for you to take on this big of a practice potentially? Or maybe you were doing good for yourself, really well for yourself, and you are looking to buy a practice that's a fixer-upper. Those do happen. So each situation is unique and subjective, and you got to be able to understand what questions to ask from a lender perspective to make sure you're putting someone in a good spot, that you're not setting them on a path for failure, right? So kind of pulling things back and talking through numbers. And there's a transaction that I recently worked on, and the owner is just a workhorse, doing a lot of production. Can't tell you how much production because they might be listening to this. They might figure out what I'm talking about. But they're doing a ton of production. And the buyer can do a lot of production too, just not enough historically to kind of marry those numbers together and say, hey, there's, an equality here between yours and his production level. So in that situation, you got to look and say worst case scenario and then, kind of bake in some additional expense for another doctor's salary, right? Because you're probably going to hire another person. You won't run at that speed forever. It's like getting on a treadmill and running 10 miles per hour right when you wake up in the morning. You can do it for a little bit. You probably can't do it all day, every day for the rest of the year. So, understanding exactly what a transition looks like, how long a transition takes, and there's risk to it, right? The least transitional risk is when you have the associate buyout. So that's the first question. Hey, you're working at the practice. No, I'm not. I'm coming from, another practice in the area, but I know the practice. I worked there as a kennel tech or a kennel tech, back in high school, whatever it was. Right. And, I kind of grew up in the practice. I love it. To me, that makes sense. They know what they're buying. It's not sight unseen. The ones that scare us a little bit, or at least the ones that scare the industry a little bit, are when you have a person that's moving in from out of state that has no ties to the area. They have no friends, no family. They just like the idea of living in St. Louis, Missouri because they love the Cardinals and they want to be close to be able to watch them at Busch Stadium. There's not really something that's keeping them there. And they're just looking for a business to buy. Those are the ones that are the toughest to take over. And, we want to make sure that someone has a good personal financial statement that's going to make sense in case they do take over a business and things don't go according to plan. To us, that's responsible. We want to make sure they have a certain amount of liquidity or cash on hand. Once they kind of go through the operational cash that we'll give them in a loan, we want to make sure that if they do burn through that in month 2, month 3, that they have a safety net to fall back onto to make sure that they don't wake up one morning and say, hey guys, this isn't working and I don't know how to make my next payment. So again, if we did our homework up front, we put them in the right situation to start with, we shouldn't have those situations. And it's the least default of all of our practice loans, because we have the physician sector and the dental sector, but animal health, very good people that pay their bills back. And the lending industry has been commoditized. There's a lot of banks out there that say, hey, this is great. These guys don't default. Let's give them money, and that's great, right? It gives the buyer a little bit more perspective and gives them more options. What I would ask the buyer to do is interview, right? Ask the tough questions. And sometimes people don't know what questions to ask. So, give it enough education, keeping our pencils sharp and putting out the best foot forward that we possibly can get. And again, being a true partner. So that way it's not just the first bite of the apple and then you never hear from that person again. It's you become friends with that doctor. You're vested in their success. You want to see them do extremely well because the industry is so tight knit. If you do right by them, they're probably going to tell a friend. If you do wrong by them, they're definitely telling a friend and probably several friends. So, sorry to go on a tangent there.
No, I think
little ADD kicking in. Sorry,
but we get back to the default, which I think is the default rate.
Right.
I don't want to glance right over that because we've talked about that before, and we're not getting ratio statistics here. We're having a nice conversation, but it's interesting because as I think through it, we've been like, oh yeah, veterinarians have the lowest default rate. Mm-hmm. They don't default. We kind of just move on.
Yeah.
Right. But there's more to it. Because is it that the Animal Health Solutions there has a good upfront process to make sure you're set up for success? Mm-hmm. I think that's one. And then compare it to the human side. There's probably human side's dealing with insurance payments, dealing with different cash flow, whereas animal health is getting care, whatever. There's some, but for the most part, most 95+% of their income is paid that day.
Yeah,
credit cards, checks, right? Yep. So it's kind of interesting to think about those kind of different things that go on. Plus, the veterinarian can just be a workhorse at the end of the day. They're the ones. Their lifestyle is not. They're not driving exotic cars. They're not building a big home.
What they are driving. They're driving the F-350 that costs $100,000. I always give them trouble.
Yeah. Well, they're doing the large animal stuff.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, there is that.
Yeah,
but,
that's true.
But they're not driving.
I kid around about it.
But for the most part, right?
Right.
It's a different
Super
demographic, and so But I think I said something. I mean, what do you think about that? The upfront thing you do, is it any different than any of the other divisions?
It's similar, but there are differences, right?
Yeah.
You take into account they're usually more of a propensity to save versus spend their money. I'll make the joke whenever I go talk at a school or I'll talk in front of a VMA or wherever, right? I always say, I knew I was in the right spot because I saw a ton of dually pickup trucks outside and some horse trailers. So I knew I was in the right spot. So that's their guilty pleasures: farms, farm equipment, and horses for the most part, right? And everyone's got to have a vice in one way or shape or form or another, and they enjoy that, right? The large animal piece for most veterinarians, I'll tell you, that's their love, but they understand the companion animal side is the business side, and that's where they have to be.
Right.
So, no, I mean, when we look at it, a lot of times they've been out for 3 to 5 years. We're starting to see a kind of a shift to where they're out 2 to 5 years, 2 to 4 years, and they're making that leap of faith into practice ownership, which we believe is the best way to improve your financial situation, as long as it's the right opportunity, whether it's
practice ownership's the best way to improve your.
We believe so. Yeah, we believe so. It's great to be an associate, and there's a lot going on right now where you can be an associate and make a heck of a lot of money, right? And we can talk about that later. But
lifestyle choices.
Yeah. I mean, it's great to see someone that put themselves in a little bit of student loan debt, most likely, and see that pay off, right? They bet on themselves and they see that bet pay off. So if you can be a part of that and make sure that it's a practice that, again, if my wife and I would buy that practice, knowing what I know and looking at those numbers, and that's what I preach to the team is, if you know what you know, you've looked at, I think I've looked at 1,000 practices over the life of 13 years of doing this. You look at all these different practice returns and you look at all these different scenarios and situations, you can kind of pay that experience forward to someone and say, hey, I'd buy this. I've tried to beat up the numbers. I can't, right? I think it's a well-run practice. It's a fair purchase price. The ones I get not frustrated with, and I understand the mentality, but the ones I try to break the mentality of is, well, I really want to get a deal on practice. And I say, well, it's a deal for a reason. They exist as a deal for a reason. They're trying to give you something that necessitates a deal.
Yeah.
When you buy a practice, you're buying that cash flow. You're buying that goodwill, the culture of the practice, the staff of the practice. And you want to come in there and you just want to be an observer. You want to sit back and watch and see how that business runs if you're not already working there as an associate. So you really give it the exam from a lender perspective. And we have vet-specific underwriters that look at these transactions the same as the sales side does, right? And I want my people to be educated enough to where they can sit and look through tax returns and they can tell you, this is a good profit margin. This is industry average. I think this expense category is a little out of line. There's probably something baked in there. We got to get to the CPA and ask them what they put in that number.
Right.
They got to be able to demonstrate they understand how this runs. And again, going back to the first part of the conversation, local banks absolutely serve a purpose, right? Big fan of it. And they would tell you, hey, if there's a better situation or a better lender that kind of, tailors their loans to what you need, you should go ahead and embrace that. And I've had that multiple times over the years. So a lot of times those local banks don't understand cash flow. They got a one size fits all loan that they'll put you in, they'll put a hair salon in and put a pizza parlor in.
Right.
It's all going to the same umbrella loan. And ours is built on cash flow, maximizing cash flow, making sure that we're putting people in a position to succeed, give them safety net, so to speak. But make sure it's a good opportunity first, cash flows. They're at a point in time in their lives professionally that they are equipped and ready to take on that ownership. And it's going to be a good situation that doesn't just result in that one practice. It might result in multiple practices, right? So you embrace that. You try to give them that vision. And can I name drop on this? Is this okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So one of my favorite clients I've ever worked with is Dr. Shannon Mellier.
Yeah.
And you guys know Dr. Shannon.
Yeah,
If she's cool with it, yeah.
I think she'd be okay. I'm talking to her on Friday. I hope she's all right. If she's not, I'm sorry.
He's texting her right now.
I'll text her. You want me to call her and put her on the?
You can. We can phone a friend. Phone a friend. But
we need to do that.
One of the coolest things about her is I met with her and her husband back in, I think, 2015 at a Panera off Telegraph Road in St. Louis, Missouri. And I remember it vividly. And
you said Panera.
Yeah, old Panera Bread Company. And
lots of deals done there.
Yeah. So we met there and I'm
giving you crap about Panera.
I know. St. Louis Bread Company. I know. There's only one left. It's right by my house. There's one St. Louis Bread Company.
Sorry to get off track, but I had to.
No, that's okay. I appreciate the local tie. But if you asked her today, she'll tell you, and she told me after the fact, I didn't know this, but she said, we went into that meeting, thinking we were wasting your time. We didn't think that we were able to do anything, that it was just an idea, but probably wasn't going to get off the ground. And you guys know how well her and her husband and her family have performed as owners. And it's not just one practice, it's multiple practices now.
Yeah.
And she's one of my favorite people. She's a workhorse, to your point. You tell her it's going to be hard for you to do, she'll do it, and probably then some. So those are my favorite client interactions that you can go back and you were a positive factor and gave them some confidence. I told her, I'm like, I didn't do anything. I just gave you the resources, right? And some of the guidance to do it, but you put the work in. I didn't do the work. You did the work. Mm-hmm. And those are my favorite people. Those are my favorite clients. And I think the world of them. I think they're some of the best people that I've ever worked with and call friends at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's taking that idea, that vision, and helping them get it on paper and to reality, and then replicating that multiple times. And yeah, I mean, it's just a great success story. So people like that you have a vested interest in, and you've known for almost a decade, that's what gets me up and gets me going every day, and most of the team as well.
So Kale's asking about that. Yeah, the person's story does matter.
Yeah,
because what you said on that was, do you work at the practice?
Yeah,
that's the story, right? Do you actually work there? Do you know about it? Do you have a tie to the community?
Yeah.
And also, as a business owner, you need to be able to be out there, promote your practice, and those things for success. That story does matter. Obviously, the numbers need to pan out. Look into that, because what's the story that you see vision-wise for this practice moving forward?
Right.
And so that's probably one of the parts I'd imagine you want to see is their enthusiasm, excitement for it. 'Cause numbers work out, but they got to have this too.
The biggest, I always ask this question: what emotions are you experiencing right now? Okay. There's usually 3. And if I don't get the 3, I'm not worried about anything. Those are the ones I'm most worried about.
You want to give that out?
I'll give it out. So the common theme for a new practice owner, whether they're starting or buying, is they're nervous, excited, and scared all at the same time. Those are the most normal emotions that someone should experience when you're making the largest financial commitment in your entire life. That to me shows that they are going to probably be successful. When the ones that come and say, I'm not worried about a thing, this is going to be easy. Those are the ones I'm like, oh boy, especially if they're buying a practice and they don't work in that practice already. Those are the ones that you really got to be careful with, because they're going to come in guns a-blazing. They're going to go in there. They're not going to sit back and observe when they buy a practice. They're going to come in day one and start cracking skulls. And those are the ones you see the staff quit on. They go down the street. And depending on who on that staff leaves, if it's an impactful associate, it's not hard to, go out and hire an associate right now, right? Those people are in high demand. So they could go down the street and get hired today,
Right.
in another practice, and probably paid the same, if not more. So those are the ones that you really got to keep close and say, hey, it's not as easy as it sounds, right? There's a lot of different hats you got to wear as an owner versus an associate. And you got to understand that. And if you don't think you're good at one of these areas of what hat you got to wear, that's where we can help supplement that and introduce you to some really good people that can probably help you, supplement that lack of knowledge, right? And they can help train you because you're smart. You have to be to get an animal or to get into vet school and to practice on a daily basis. You have to be intelligent. So identifying where your weak spot is and raising your hand saying, hey, I don't get this, then we can help you. But if you're super confident, overconfident, those are the ones that sometimes don't work out the greatest.
So from your perspective, someone buys a practice.
Yep.
How long should they sit and observe and get acquainted with something before they're like, okay, here's a change I'm making? What do you see being successful?
Yeah, good question, Kale. I feel like a good observation point is at least a month, maybe 2, to sit back and really watch it and see what's going on there. Especially if there's if the previous owner is in that practice still. You want to watch and sit back and observe from their point of view how they've done it and make notes. And then slowly but surely, like the ocean, right? You get in the ocean, all of a sudden you don't even realize you're moved down the beach. You don't even know how it happened. That's the way you got to kind of be as an owner. You got to make changes subtly and slowly. And you'll see it, and hopefully for the better, right? Obviously for the better. But you'll see that approach work a little bit better where it's not just shock. Because everyone's nervous when you buy a practice. Or, not just the owner, right? The new owner. The staff's nervous. Hey, we worked for Doc for 40 years. Who's this person?
Right.
That's a scary thing for the staff. And another little list I give out whenever I go to a practice. I can always pick up 3 different things when I walk into a practice first time in. Aesthetics, friendliness of staff, and cleanliness/smell. Mm-hmm. Those are going to tell me, right out of the gates, is there pride in this practice? Does the owner take pride and the staff take pride in how that business looks for clients walking in the door? If there's tension in the air, we all know, we've been into practices where there's tension in the air and you can cut it with a knife and you're like, something's not right in this place. You can tell something's not right. So when you have those 3 things working in conjunction, usually it's an indication what we're going to see on the financials, because a well-run practice on a day-to-day operational basis and has those 3 characteristics going on, usually that's going to translate to good financials. Not always, but knock on wood.
You can, a lot of times when you walk in the door, you can feel it. You can look at it.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, they've got
the tension can be thick.
It can be.
You don't want to be in those practices very long if you're an associate, a lay staff, whatever it is. So going back to the question, I think depending on the situation, if you're an associate and everyone on the staff's been waiting for you to buy it out because they're excited that new ownership's going to take it over and they're going to make the changes that need to be done, those can be immediate because you already know what's going on, right? If you're coming in from a different state and you don't know the practice, you don't know the goodwill, wait as long as you need, right? And you feel like it's comfortable to make that improvement or that change, that might be 3 months down the line, right? And I would query the staff and say, hey, what do you guys think about this? Get the buy-in from the people that are going to be living that day-to-day operational, change and see if they're on board for it. I'm a big fan of, and I tell all the guys on the team, you guys don't work for me. I work for you, right? Yeah. I want you to feel comfortable and confident.
Pyramids
it goes out exact opposite. That's right. Yeah. They manage up like a tree, right? Yeah. I'm at the base. You guys are the branches. So that's my belief as a leader. You got to, and that's what practice owners are. They're wearing so many different hats, and leadership is the biggest hat to wear. Create the culture in a positive way. When you're in an exam room, you got to hope that receptionist is answering the phone and it's a consistent theme all the way from the time the client calls in for the first time to set an appointment to when they hit the reception area, they get checked in, the techs are doing the same messaging, you have the same message as the doctor, and the follow-through's there too. Those are when you see what really well-run practices from a culture standpoint. So
absolutely.
Sorry, I got on a soapbox there.
That's exactly what we wanted.
I saw it. Sorry.
No, you bring us some real good points about the fact that, I have to dive down this, but if that doctor's in that exam room thinking about, is the phone getting answered?
Yeah.
Is my office running well? And they've got a living being in front of them that they're expected to be focused on.
Yep.
In order to practice that best medicine, make the best recommendations for that animal. Yeah. Which in turn makes for successful practice. Mm-hmm. If that's going on out there, and you know what a lot of times the answer is, I don't have time. And you're going, well, you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
The whole day you're there.
Yeah.
You're not going to take an hour of your day to
That's right.
think about that. Because when you get business ownership hat on, you can't be 100% veterinarian anymore.
No.
You're going to have to carve out time to be a business owner.
That's right.
And I don't think what you want to do is go, if you're working 50 hours a week, you don't want to add another 10 or 20 hours on. You want to try to, you're going to a degree, put some more hours on at times. I mean, that's part of owning a business, but how do you balance those things out so you are excited? Because we can help out with the scary and the nervous, right? Because I think important thing is, like Kale, that person's asking about looking at me, looking at the numbers, is you're going to look at the numbers. Yeah. And you have rule book guidelines to go by to really know where that's at. And you mentioned then if we see anomalies, we go talk to CPAs. And the question is the CPA understand the veterinary industry?
That's right. The danger area is when you got a CPA that just gets the books dumped on them once a year.
Right.
And says, here, put this together.
Right.
And then it comes time to take that practice to market, and someone doing the evaluation looks at it and says, I can't make heads or tails of this thing. Right. There's no tracking to industry averages, or, I'm not sure what to do with this. I can't add this back as profitability, and that's going to affect your value for the business. And then, vice versa, the buyer looks at it and they say, this is so messy. I don't understand anything of what I'm looking at. And they give it to me and I go, I'm right there with you. I'm not sure what's going on here.
Yeah.
That's a very cloudy, it's a very muddy way of trying to figure out your largest financial commitment in your entire life, right? So you want transparency. Anyone that's getting ready to go to market, they usually want about 2 to 3 years, right, of getting things cleaned up and in order, some best practices, some industry averages, so it looks transparent, clear, and someone can see, hey, I'm going to make this much money as the new owner of this, and I always describe it as a puzzle, right? You got a puzzle, it's put together already with the current owners. It's got a nice, pretty picture, whatever kind of picture you like for a puzzle. And then our job, right, and your guys' job too, I think, is to unplug those ownership pieces of that puzzle and then put in the buyer's puzzle pieces and see if it still makes a very pretty picture.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And again, I think, taking the perspective of, would my wife and I buy this practice, knowing what we know? I get a little too blunt sometimes, right? But I think it's important. I think you got to have that trust and that knowledge to be able to say, I don't like it, and here's why. And you challenge the person that's looking to buy it, and they might say, thank goodness someone finally said something, because I've been feeling the same way, but everyone else, all these different banks have been saying, yeah, it's a great opportunity. I'm like, I don't know if it is, so again, being knowledgeable enough and having the experience to say X, Y, and Z doesn't make sense to me. Again, that's the largest financial commitment you're ever going to make in your entire life. You got to make sure it's not wrong. Hindsight cannot be 20/20. You got to do it right.
As we do valuations, we've come up against some recently that they have a valuation already, but they've been having a hard time selling it, or the person that's buying it's like, I don't know. And we're seeing a lot of inflated valuations from people, not banks, because when we look at a valuation, our question is, will Bank of America lend on this practice? That's also what we look at, what numbers truly that will justify the cash flow. And what I look at too is that when someone's looking for a deal, why would you want to buy a deal? I'd want to buy a profitable practice that makes me money on day one, that I don't have to go in and go on hope and a prayer that I can turn. That's pretty bold to be like, I can go in and fix that place.
That's right. There's a reason it looks like it's a deal, right? There was something there that the owner before either, and sometimes it's maybe not their fault. Maybe it's a health concern that's limited their production abilities.
There's circumstances.
There's a lot of things that kind of play into that, but typically speaking, that goodwill that might have been there at one point in time, it's not there anymore.
Is your clinic facing a talent shortage? You're not alone. In today's competitive landscape, finding the right people can feel like searching for a needle in a haystack. Recruiting top-notch veterinary talent doesn't have to be difficult. DVM Connect is here to revolutionize your veterinary recruiting game. We're the secret weapon you never knew you needed. Our social media experts will partner with you to curate a personalized recruitment strategy that fills your clinic with passionate, qualified individuals. Say goodbye to wasted time and hello to a collaborative, stress-free journey towards building your dream team. For more information, visit us at propartnersteam.com. Chris, you're absolutely right. That the biggest investment someone's going to make in their life. Right. And so you want to get it right. And so you said scary, excited, nervous. It's a big reason, because it's one of the biggest investments they're going to make in their life. And we can help with the scary and nervous. part of it, and I want to keep them excited. It's giving them clarity in those things. So I think as we look at that, and one of the biggest things that I think is important really to hit on a little bit, but it's the specialty part of what you're doing, and explain that why that's so important.
Yeah. It's funny. I go into financial centers, a lot of times, and
explain to everybody the financial center.
Fancy name for a branch, right? Just where you're going in and you're doing your banking business. You're going in and you're seeing a teller. We call them financial centers, but branches, one and the same. And, I'll go in there and it pops up on a screen that, because I'm also a client of Bank of America. And so I do my banking there, and they'll say, "Oh, you're an associate. What do you do?" And I tell them, "This is what I do." And they said, "I've heard of that division, but I have no idea what you do." And it's fun because you tell them what you do. And at the end of the day, I always make a joke out of it. I always tell them, "Hey, I eat stuff I shouldn't. I drink stuff I shouldn't. And I get to, meet a ton of people."
Yeah.
And, that's ultimately true. But it's also so rewarding to take someone that has that dream and that idea, and you give them clarity, right? You put them together with people that are like-minded that can help, like you guys, and you make that dream a reality and continue to be a dream versus becoming a nightmare.
Right.
I always like to tell people that are doing startups, it's not if you're going to hit a speed bump, it's just when you're going to hit that speed bump. And then the team you put around you, right? There's trusted professionals for each line of business, whether a contractor, realtor, people that are vetted, so to speak, in animal health. And we know who is good and who's withstood the test of time in the industry. And those are the people we want to work with. Those are the people that know what they're doing. And my definition of a good professional, whatever line of business is, when you hit that speed bump, it doesn't turn into a roadblock. You know how to overcome it and get around it. So when that problem hits, not if, but when that problem hits, no big deal. Been here before. This is how we handle it. I'm going to get on the phone with X, Y, and Z company. We're going to make sure that this gets smoothed out. You're good to go. Versus someone that's not specialized, that's never done a startup, never done an acquisition, never done an expansion, relocation, remodel, any of the capital needs that a veterinarian would have for their practice, whether they're starting or buying or anything in between. You've done it before so many times, you pay that experience forward. So just understanding that we actually get paid to do this. We love to do it. And we love the animal health community. We're incredibly close and very proud of our endorsement and our preferred lender status with AVMA.
Right.
We take it extremely serious. We try to get back to the profession and make sure we do it the right way. We want the interaction, whether or not we actually give you the money. I always tell the doctors, the last thing we'll actually give you is the actual, funding for what you're looking to do. We're going to give you everything else, and we're going to connect some dots, and take away the fogginess. We're going to make it super clear. So
that's so important, because getting that person set up for success in the beginning before they ever get that money.
Yeah.
To make sure it's the right path for them, even practice, all those things that come together. That's a caring community. How many on the team?
Right now we're at 10. We need 12.
Okay.
So promotion.
Promotion. You got it.
Yeah, we got to backfill. And whoever takes my spot, which you actually know who it is, he's better than I am. Ever thought about being. So
that's awesome.
Everyone in this market's actually in for a pleasant surprise when Nate hits the ground running. So
good.
But yeah, usually about 12 people nationwide. We're looking to expand that.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Well, Kale, what did we miss anything?
I don't know. I always like to ask people what's the thing you're the most proud of your career at Bank of America?
You got really good questions.
I think it's more important that you speak. Yeah. So,
the biggest thing that really makes me proud now that I have little kids, right? We got 3 little kids. Hunter and Taylor, they're oldest. They're 5 and 6, soon to be 6 and 7 next month and the following month. And then we have the baby. It's almost a year and a couple weeks. I like when I drive around, in St. Louis, and I drive past a practice and I say, "Hey, that's Dr. So-and-so. They're really, really nice people." And I helped them do that.
Yeah.
Right. I helped not just here's your money, good luck. I literally had that person from, 4 years prior to them actually doing something. And you kind of walk them through, hey, this is what you can do to get ready for it. Give them all the knowledge. So that way hindsight's not 20/20. And you help make a positive impact, not just for them, but their family too. And, my little guys, I always say like, hey, do you want to go to the veterinarian's office today? And they're like, yeah, they love it. So they think it's really cool. And again, I kind of live vicariously through my veterinarians, but it's cool to be able to say to the kids like, hey, daddy helped with that practice. And again, I want to be able to, when I see one of my clients out and, having dinner with their family or having coffee, I want to be able to go up to them and give them a hug and say, hey, how's it going? I never want to be like, oh my gosh, there's so-and-so, I got to hide. That's not it. Right. And I'm, not 100% of the time, I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. There's no doubt about it, but I try my best. And I know my team tries their best to have those relationships that are long-term, life-changing relationships for the better. So that's really what kind of gets me going, and it's changed over the years, but that's a lot of it. That's a really good question.
That satisfy you?
That was a great answer. I wanted to tear up. I was about to cry.
Got to get some laughs here.
No.
We've been digging deep.
Oh, I'm telling you,
digging deep. No, that's why we're all together as friends. And this is not a paid Bank of America deal.
No,
this is friends talking about the veterinary industry. We believe in people impact, believe in independent businesses, and that's why we're doing this podcast, is to help educate veterinarians that are thinking about ownership, that are in ownership, thinking about moving on to the next phase of their life.
Yeah.
That there's people out there that care, that help, that understand the industry. And it's amazing that, the size of the Bank of America is that they have the division they have for animal health, science, lending. And it's remarkable. And to put to your point, we need to advocate that you're there.
Yeah.
Because you go into your local Bank of America branch and
Yeah.
you're the one you go in, the one you bank at.
Yeah.
And they're like, who are you?
That's right.
What do you do?
Yeah. They're like,
Yeah.
hey, we know you. Actually,
Yeah.
we know you, but
Yeah.
it takes them a second to jog the memory. So,
Yeah.
and vice versa, right? Our belief, right, is to connect people,
Right.
and to have that network of really good resources. And I can't say enough about you guys. Ever since we met,
Appreciate that.
I've met a lot of people that call themselves consultants.
Right.
And it's completely different. You guys are a one-stop shop for anything and everything that someone needs personally and professionally, and just that coaching experience. Everyone needs a coach. I remember you guys told me that a long time ago.
Yeah.
And it's 100% true. I don't care who you are. Jordan had a coach.
Jordan had a coach.
Yeah. It's a true statement. So incredibly blessed and fortunate that we actually crossed paths when we did.
Absolutely.
I was embarrassed I didn't know you guys before that, because I
You're
should
good.
have.
I think we met at the right time.
Yeah, we did.
We met the
We
right
absolutely did. But I can't say enough about what you guys are able to do for your clients. And again, I always grade people that I introduce off of what my doctors tell me, in reverse. And I think everyone to date has said nothing but, this is awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Yep.
And that's, again, take that super seriously, because, the referral is only as good as someone that makes it.
Absolutely.
And it reflects on that person that makes it. So you got to take it seriously. And again, if I wouldn't use it, if my wife and I wouldn't introduce that person to a client, or take that referral ourselves, we shouldn't be sending that referral out to a client. Right?
Absolutely.
So you guys have done an absolutely fantastic job. And I love that you guys are doing this podcast. And I think it's important to spread the message about what you guys are able to do and accomplish. And then thanks again for giving us a platform to kind of spread the message on what we are able to do too.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's awesome.
Hey, you'll be on again. There's no question about it. We'll have fun topics to talk about. As this grows and changes, we've got strategic partners. Jason Merkling with IDEX has been on.
Yeah.
The podcast. And, I got John Hooker. I don't know if Hooker wants to be on or not, construction out of St. Louis, a good friend. We'll have times where we probably need to do a special deal, get us all together, strategic partners, and just have fun.
That's it.
Talk industry, what trends you're seeing, those things, and just bring the awareness that there are a group of people you can trust for veterinary specific.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing too.
Yeah,
like
that's exactly right.
What's all we're doing is veterinarians.
That's exactly right.
You can say that now. I mean, that's all you're doing is veterinarians.
That's exactly right.
Which is awesome.
And I love it. It's the most rewarding. I get excited.
I might be saying that the wrong way. All we're working with is veterinarians. Let me clear that up. I got a wet slip here. What?
But that's my favorite thing. That's my passion. I will stay on the phone, and my clients know this, and you guys know this. If they don't cut me off, I'll stay on the phone with them 2 hours, after hours, just kind of talking through what's going on.
Yeah.
Again, just doing the right thing, whether that benefits you immediately or not, you do the right thing by them, because that's what it should be.
Absolutely.
And it comes back to you. Karma's a real thing. It comes back to you if you do the right thing.
Yeah.
So
it does.
Absolutely.
Well, what a great sit down today. We could keep going, but I don't think anyone wants to necessarily listen that long to one podcast.
Yeah.
So let's be respectful of time and attention spans.
Absolutely.
But a lot of great information today on the fact that there's great partners out there. People can own their own veterinary practice, be successful, that a deal may not be the right thing. It's really what is it for you that matters?
Right.
The cash flow, does it fit your lifestyle? And at the end of the day, you got to explore those things before you just go out and jump in.
That's right.
So
do your
Chris, how does
homework.
somebody get a hold of you?
Oh,
Or one of your reps?
yeah, they can go out to our website, bankofamerica.com, and go to the small business section. You can find your way to Practice Solutions. There's a couple different ways to connect up, but that's the easiest way to hit our website and submit some information, have us get in contact with you that way. We're pretty visible. We're at most of the major conferences. We usually have, a booth, and we're always active. We're always out and about in the marketplaces. So if you're in the arena of trying to do a startup or an acquisition, or you're trying to do any kind of expansion, relocations, remodels, ask the people that you're working with, hey, are you connected to Bank of America Practice Solutions? If they aren't, maybe double check that person, because we've been doing this for such a long time. Not 100% of the time you're going to be able to connect it that way, but there should be a connection point that way as well.
Absolutely. Google can always help out.
That's right.
Getting
That's
that.
right.
It's probably easier to Google
BankofAmericaPracticeSolutions.com.
than go to the website. It's probably
That's true.
Bank of
That's true.
America Practice
Click
Solutions.
on that. It'll take you right to the landing page, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
AVMA, you can hit on that website too, and it has a resource section for Member Edge. We can connect that way too. So there's a lot of different avenues that we try to marry up to.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks everybody for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And again, send us questions. Check us out on social media. TheVetterPodcast.com is our website where you can find more information about what we're doing here. And we can't thank you enough for listening. Thanks, y'all.
Peace and blessings.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.